Welcome to What Do You Think of This, where we are revisiting the best things from our past to let you know whether they're the best things for your future.
Yep.
I'm Jeff Abyad. This is Josue Escobar.
What's up, everybody?
It is the epic spring of 2025.
It is.
Can you add some vocal effects to that? Yeah.
You need the big
timpani
percussion drum tunes.
Timpani roll. Yeah, we are getting there. Honestly, I can't imagine a more epic movie than this one we're talking about today, which is the Ten Commandments.
The Ten Commandments.
Everybody knows.
A Cecil B. movie. It's crazy.
Feature film live in Technicolor.
Not Dolby live. Stereo. That's how old this movie is.
That Dolby was only stereo?
Yeah.
In mono. Look, all the sound comes out of one speaker.
Yeah, 1956.
1956. And then after today, I have a little bit of closing the loop. I just feel like I need a little redemption on my Spanish pronunciation. Really butchered that. I think like you sit here in the podcast studio and things that I would just even normally remember, I don't remember. It got really bad there. But I had one other thing to close the loop on. So
that's so funny.
We'll pretty much get to this. But on the theme of epic spring, has your spring been epic outside of the podcast studio?
Yeah, not really.
That doesn't sound very epic.
No. I mean, it's been a good time, but nothing really that stands out.
I mean, sporting wise, I was just telling you, the hockey season is coming to a close into playoffs, and that's been epic because of the record Ovechkin just broke. The pollen has been epic.
Oh, that has been pretty
this season. There was one day
I had to double up on my Zyrtec.
It was on Sunday.
Yeah.
Everybody pulled into the parking lot, and everybody's car was just a hazy, yellowy green.
Yeah. Ugh.
Disgusting.
Gosh, yeah. No,
and
that's definitely been an epic. I can't remember the last time it felt like this before.
It's been pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So anyway, who would think they had pollen in the wilderness of Sinai?
Yeah. Yeah, I know, right?
Only scorpions and
oh my gosh.
fire coming from the ground. Yeah. We'll get to it. I have, speaking of childhood and epic things to kind of come into this topic, an epic joke.
Okay.
That I figure I will tease. We'll just release it because it comes in 5 parts throughout the episode. But something about this made me think of it when we were coming to this episode. Mm-hmm. Okay, here's my joke. Who were the 5 constipated men in the Bible?
Man, that's a good question.
You have any guesses? There's a lot of trivia in this week's episode, so I thought I'll just seed it with the trivia. I have printed pages of facts. We're going to get right to it.
I know a Bendigo is probably something like, I beg to go, or something like that.
That'd be a good one. That's going to be 6 constipated men.
Because he couldn't go.
No, okay, my first one is, and I'm going to just drop these throughout the episode.
Okay.
Cain, who wasn't able. That's number 1. Should we just hit the intro? Are you doing it this week? This is my pitch for an intro. I found out, Josue, you're very good at the old school radio announcer voice.
Oh my goodness.
And so in the style of the 10 Commandments, not the guy that comes out of the curtain, but the trailer guy.
Yeah, that was wild.
He was different.
I told you about that.
Yeah, we'll talk about it in a second. Can you give us an introduction for this week's episode?
Should I just read
Yeah, sure.
All right. Paramount Pictures presents the greatest epic of all, Cecil B. DeMille's The 10 Commandments, starring Charlton Heston, Yul Brynner, and Baxter, in the greatest story ever, brought to you in Super Vista Vision. Here exclusively on wdyt.show. There we go.
Thank you. We don't need anything besides that. The 10 Commandments. Ba, 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 ba.
Epic, yeah.
Okay, I pitched this because I had a vague memory of watching it at some point. Maybe it was during lockdown with my kids.
Yeah.
And I watched it a lot growing up.
Lockdown, what a crazy time.
Yeah, remember that? And so I pitched it because I remember watching it and then them actually watching it and being more engaged than I thought they would.
Yeah.
Because it's a long movie.
Yeah.
You know? And then we sat down for it this time around. I'm like, guys, we got to watch this movie and we got to start on it now before dinner because it's pretty long. And they're like,
I had
how
to
long is
split
it?
it.
Yeah.
2 days. I did it in 2 days.
We sat down and Clark had to go to basketball practice. So the rest of us sit on the couches and I pull it up and they see the timestamp. They're like 3 hours and 50 minutes. Like, yeah, I just, get ready.
I love at the end where they have the end music, the banner just on there with the music at the end just playing.
I know. My kids wanted to skip it even at the beginning. And I'm like, well, a little bit, but you want to get yourself into the mood. Anyway, so I'll let you know their opinion when we get to the end of this because I was,
It was really cool. I had to split it up into 2 days.
And it parted in two?
Yeah, it parted in two. It worked out really cool because when I sat down to watch it again was actually the day I had to go pick up my mom from the airport.
Uh-huh.
And my dad, comes to the house because I'm gonna drive so he doesn't get lost in the whole thing of the airport, whatever. So
wandering for 40 years.
Yeah, this is midnight on Tuesday into Wednesday midnight.
Uh-huh.
And he comes over and I'm like, well, I need to finish watching the 10 Commandments. We don't need to pick up my mom until 2. So we have a couple hours to kill.
Yeah.
So we start watching, and I think he joined me. Right before the plagues, right before when he first comes to Pharaoh, to tell him to let his people go. Anyway, and we're watching this, and I think we didn't quite finish. I finished that day. The next day later. But anyway, so I guess I split it into 3 days. Jeez.
No, that's not biblical.
I know. Well, 3 days. Come
on. Okay. I'll give it to you.
Watching the movie, he started to tell me about the things that he remembered back in the day when he watched it. And he remembered watching this in the movie theaters.
I can't believe that because it came out in 1956.
Yeah, and my dad was born in 1949.
Wild.
So he was 6 or 7 when he watched it.
Yeah.
Because he was like, we remember getting popcorn and leaving during the intermission to go to the bathroom, get more popcorn, whatever, and then come back and sit down.
What's the first movie you remember watching in the theaters?
Man, I don't know.
The first memory I have of watching a movie in the theater might have been a Disney one, like The Little Mermaid or something like that.
I want to say it's like The Lion King or Aladdin, something.
It wasn't something
like
this. Well, I guess that's as monumental, but this is so epic, significant, kind of feels world changing, or it did in my mind.
Yeah.
And then we sat down to watch it, and I'm just, noticing things right off the bat as far as like the quality of the production and all that sort of stuff,
Yeah.
Well, so let me just lay out a few facts here, and you can look at IMDb for more of this. But this movie was nominated for 7 Academy Awards, and it won for Best Visual Effects.
Wow.
No CGI.
Yeah.
So the whole like Red Sea splitting, there was a lot of techniques involved, stitching layers together and reverse film and all that stuff.
Yeah. So one of the questions that I had, and I don't know if you found this out or not, but some of the animations looked very like cartoon type of
fire,
like Disney type
pillar of fire,
like Disney type cartoon with real live action stuff put together. So I wonder if they had animators like that they must have had animators on the film, whatever. But I wonder if they overlapped with some of these guys that did things for like Disney and stuff, because it looked very very Disney-esque type of like cartoon animated stuff with live action stuff put together.
Right.
Which was, at the time, Disney was the best at that.
Yeah, it was whatever the tricks that they were using, very specific to this era too, and they're kind of working within whatever tools that they had. But there were like points where that's completely a green screen, you know?
Yeah.
Like they dramatically open the curtain when he's looking at all the stuff that Moses built in Egypt, and he's like, oh, and it's like, okay, that's not there.
Yeah, with great acting though, because they're like, this is what you call treason?
Yeah.
He built my image.
There's so many great quotable lines in this one we'll get to. But even Moses, when he gets to the burning bush, we'll talk about it when we get there. Okay, so
Actually, that's when me and my dad came right before that, actually. Because
that was like the intermission, right after the intermission.
Yes. It's so funny because really quick, he's do you guys see that burning bush.
From like how far away? Yeah. Lucy said, she's like, how long does he have to climb? Well, far away
And then he goes into like a cave. Yeah. So me and my dad were like, how was he able to see that? Like it didn't make any
sort
sense.
of supernatural vision. He's hallucinating. He's hallucinating.
Seeing right through the rock.
Okay, this is made by Paramount Pictures. The runtime was 3 hours and 40 minutes. And I don't know if that includes the guy coming out of the curtain at the beginning, which I did not remember, but was.
And the intermission. The intermission is how long? Like 15 minutes? No, not less than that.
We did skip through that.
I think it's like 3 minutes.
Because we watched it all the way through. Technicolor, VistaVision, widescreen format, which was a big deal. You need that to catch both sides of the Red Sea. Estimated $13 million to make, create, produce one of the most expensive films ever made at the time.
Wow.
And we've come a long way since then.
What about for inflation? If you factor in inflation, how much is that
You should
today?
Google that right now while I spit out the rest of these facts. What's 1956, $13 million today. And the box office return was over $122 million during its initial run. That's like insane.
Yeah.
13 to 122. And you know what book this movie was based on?
Let me see.
Okay, come on. We all know. I did like the note, though. It wasn't only Exodus, from the Bible, but it included other like extra biblical but contemporary resources like writings of Josephus or the Midrash texts or other Philo of Alexandria. It's all there in the movie. So I think, did you find it?
Yeah, 153,091,977.
I guess like $153 million in today's money to make, which is up there. It's Avengers scale production.
With 61 cents.
And 61 cents. The tagline was the greatest event in motion picture history.
I mean, some would argue in
Real
world
history. Yeah, I know. Well, that's the thing. And so, there's so much to talk about that I split this up into sections that we can get to.
Yeah,
there's a lot to talk about.
A lot.
But I really appreciated, as a self-proclaimed Bible nerd, all of the drops, the name drops, the like nods to biblical things. And they took some liberties with certain things or whatever.
Yeah, sure.
But we even have a full page of just all the random characters that were mentioned.
Yeah.
That weren't even necessarily main characters.
Yeah.
We're just name dropping random biblical people.
That's cool.
It was very cool.
Did they say, the guy in the beginning when he came out on the curtain, did he say anything about biblical accuracy or anything like that?
He did. He talked about the sources that they pulled it from. I think he did.
One of the things
was
that
written on screen.
Yeah, one of the things that I've going through all this recently learned that the Pharaoh's names aren't recorded in the Bible, in the Exodus.
No, but in history.
But no, because the name Ramses you can't find of the pharaohs of old or whatever.
But it's a city.
It's a city. So the Bible says like Moses helped build two cities.
The Israelites, yeah.
And one of the cities is Ramses.
Yeah, the other one's like Python or something.
So that's why they're like, maybe the pharaoh was named Ramses, but there is no pharaoh named Ramses.
Oh,
but they have found a pharaoh that fits the description of the pharaoh of that time.
Tall, handsome, muscular, shaved head.
There's a pharaoh that's been buried with his firstborn. And they found that, and he has like boils and stuff. You could tell that he had boils on his skin.
Wait, how do you? Oh, I guess mummified.
Well, they're mummified. Yeah. So they're like, this must be the pharaoh of the Exodus account because he fits the description. And
that's interesting. I've never heard that.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. So this introduction that you pointed out, this is Cecil B. DeMille's movie, but second time around.
Yeah, which was crazy.
The first one was black and white, lesser production. This one was no holes barred.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great
Technicolor,
great story, and I think Cecil B. DeMille did how many movies? I mean, he was really a great director. So they gave him this one again.
And they set up from the beginning as this thematic introduction that I didn't remember. Do men belong to the state or to God? Like they framed it in these like political contexts where I didn't even think of it in that way. I was just as a kid watching the Bible story.
Yeah.
So
yeah, me too. And I remember, I know I watched this movie a few times, and I know I watched it at home with my dad or with my family in like West. I specifically remember watching this in the house in West Virginia. Off of the Beta. What a throwback.
And now that you've seen Charlton Heston in this, do you feel like you could pull off a better impression? Last week I wasn't sure how to, but he's a very charismatic actor.
Yeah.
Obviously, good-looking guy, very like steady delivery. I don't know if it's nostalgia, but I really like him.
Yeah, my dad. One of the comments my dad made was the acting was so good. Like you're really watching this time period, like a camera in this time period.
Oh, like the biblical time period?
Yeah, you know. And he's just like they're committed. The way they're acting is so. I don't know. Yeah. It's kind of soap opera-y, whatever.
I was going to say, there's some moments that are very over the top.
Yeah.
Especially Nefertiti and Ramses have some real great lines that are just really funny.
They're very in the actual like acting. They're maybe overacting when, you know. But yeah, I kind of agreed with him. It was like, it felt like you were there. But,
yeah.
You know, we know now things are a little bit different.
Things are a little bit different. Yeah, I felt,
sure.
To me, it feels like acting from the time period, like the time period it was filmed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like theatrical. The very first time you see Pharaoh and his little like group of men where he makes an edict to kill all the firstborn.
Yeah.
They cut to the scene and they're all standing in like a very posed, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then the lines that they deliver are so scripted and like epically written, you know?
Yeah.
And some of them come right out of the Bible, but other ones just vary the delivery.
Yeah, and you can tell that they had particular cues for their movements.
Oh, yeah.
They're all standing, and now.
Anyways, yeah.
And, you know, so it didn't take me completely out of it, but because I had, you know, there's a little bit of there's some respect to this time period of movie making. Honestly,
Yes.
honestly, I didn't feel, because if somebody made something like this and it felt this way in the 90s or the 2000s, I'd have less respect for it than I did for this movie.
Because I feel like at that point it would be tongue in cheek. It would be not as earnest.
Yeah.
This was very earnest.
Yes, that's exactly the word, I think.
Yeah.
They were honestly just doing it, and there is no reference for cheesy, campy, or you know what I mean?
I think now in the year 2025, the desire for making a movie like this would be like, how do we make this feel like us, like real people as we know real people? So we take our, you know, general personalities, our ideas of whatever, and not that because like they said from the beginning, they were talking about politics of the time even, but how do we make this story feel like, you know, the tensions that we feel today? This wasn't that. This was, how do we take this biblical story and whatever from this historical story and then just embody that in the way that we're reading it.
Yeah.
And so even like every time you hear the voice of God, it's in King James English. My kids are like, why does God talk like that? I'm like, well, they're like taking it from the text that they're using, and it makes it feel that way, whether or not it was accurate.
Take thy staff in your hand.
We'll get to it. Okay, so early Egypt, baby Moses. Charlton Heston is Moses, but at the beginning, do you know that baby in the basket is Charlton Heston's baby?
No.
Yeah. It's his son in that basket, whose name I do not recall. But Charlton Heston himself, very famous for this role. He also plays the voice of God in the movie.
Yeah. Val Kilmer, same way in The Prince of Egypt. But I didn't know this until watching like some of the behind the scenes stuff. They actually combined all the actors' voices to make the voice of God, but they had to have one actor's voice stand out.
That's cool. That's the Prince of Egypt?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really cool. So
this one's definitely, we'll get to it in a second. And then he plays Moses again in like a Bible audiobook recording.
Oh, that's cool.
Which is cool, yeah. So you get the general story. If you don't know the story of Moses, Pharaoh wants to kill, the Hebrew people because they're multiplying. And so his mother puts him in a basket and then puts him in the Nile River, basically to die, but not hoping, praying. Yeah. And then he gets discovered and then is raised as an Egyptian.
Yep. As an Egyptian prince.
Yes.
Because the Pharaoh's daughter finds?
Yeah.
Yeah. The Pharaoh's daughter finds him.
And she completely knows what's going on.
Yeah.
In the movie, she has her little servant there, Memlet, which is a funny name. And I think one of the characters I like the most for some reason. She's just real, I don't know why.
She takes the cloth and nobody sees me do this.
This secret dies with you, Memlet.
Yeah.
On the day you speak of it again, you will die.
And
what
she
does.
Say?
Yeah, she does.
That's so crazy.
It's really foreboding. Yeah, I like her. I like that you can see the production budget in everybody's clothing really good in the scenery. The only place that I had a qualm was the servant's hair. It's like, what are these Egyptian wigs?
Yeah, dude. So yeah, you mentioned the production of that scene, right? Particularly where she sees the basket floating in the water. I couldn't tell where the green screen started and where the real water started.
That one was a unique one where it was mostly Egypt in the distance and not in that scene.
They did a great job making that look real. The basket comes from further out.
Yeah.
And I'm like, is that really the basket? Is there still water going back down there?
Yeah.
Or is it a screen? Like,
it's pretty impressive.
The way they did that transition, that was masterful.
Yeah.
And then I don't know why they couldn't do the same with
some of the other stuff. It was the beginning of the movie. At the end, they're like, well, we're out of cash.
Yeah, probably. They're probably like, oh, we're running out of money. How do we do this? We still have to part the sea?
No, they were definitely working on that from the beginning.
Yeah.
So, and then you get this time jump. And of course, now it's all of our characters who remain the same age for the rest of the movie, which technically takes place for like 80 years. The only person who ages is Charlton Heston. And it's pretty dramatic.
And he only ages because he keeps seeing God.
Every time.
You have the light of the Lord on you, Moses.
Like, oh, he's got highlights in his beard now. White ones. No.
Look at the way Joshua delivered that line. Look at his face. Like he was totally him. He wasn't going like, look at his face. No dramatic. He was just like, look at his face. And she's like, he's seen God.
He has seen God.
That I think they should have retaken that and be like, hey man, can you be a little more dramatic here? It sounded like you were on the...
He's just on there for eye candy. Him and Lilia, they're like, we need some really good looking people that are going to be like the eye candy. And Nefertiti. Well, Yul Brynner. There's a lot of good looking people in this movie.
Yul Brynner with the... he only has the Egyptian thing on his chest.
My kids are like, do they not wear shirts in Egypt?
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I don't...
And his, whatever his skirt, whatever, is up to his like belly button, and his abs are just like perfect and popping out like...
Not like Avengers abs. Like, this looks like a normal man, a good-looking normal man.
Yeah. Like, dang.
Yeah. I was like, well, it's hot in Egypt, you know? They're like, well, all the time? They don't wear any clothes? I'm like, well, you know, you're Egyptian. You got to flaunt it.
Yeah. Oh, my God.
As far as I understand, and I didn't look this up because this is a fact that I have, that little lock of hair is something princes have that gets shaved off when they become Pharaoh, right?
I believe so. I believe so, yeah.
Because he's got that funny lock of hair. And Moses has one too, but the rest of his hair is not.
Because he's not the heir. Not necessarily the heir to the throne, because he's technically the second child, not the first.
And the Bible is not clear when Moses finds this out, but at some point, so these are kind of the liberties that he's taking. But you get this dynamic between Moses and Ramses where Ramses really, not bitter, but he just like... What's the word I'm looking for? He's kind of jealous. He's like, this guy doesn't deserve to be here. I'm the one that deserves to take the throne. And then obviously Moses is a very character-filled, the one who's actually worthy to lead.
Yeah. Like it was really interesting. And I mean, I think obviously they take liberties with this, but it's really interesting to show the Pharaoh giving a command and Moses ignoring it because he knows what's more important.
Yeah, when he asked Moses to come and stand before him because Ramses is complaining about him, saying, "Oh, well, he's going to lead a revolt against you."
Exactly.
The line, I wrote it down when they are bickering at the beginning, and Nefertiti's sitting with them, you know, and he sets them on their task to like Moses to go do this and Ramses to go find the traitor, you know.
Yeah.
And the line that he delivers said, I can't remember the actor's name. I think our roosters would crow more softly on another roof, and I'm like. I'm looking at Lucy. I'm like, what did he say? What does that mean? But I looked it up, and it's basically like they'll calm down if we separate them and have them go do other things. But I was like, there's a lot of lines like that are very dramatically delivered.
It was probably poetic. In that time period too. Those sayings that people all understood.
Yeah,
you know.
Which I did not.
Yeah, Cedric Hardwicke.
Oh yeah, that's right. A Shakespearean actor knighted actually by King George V.
Wow. Yeah, Sir Cedric. I think is he related to Chris Hardwick?
I don't know who that is.
There's a comedian. He has a show, a podcast called ID10T. Chris Hardwick. He was also the host of The Walking Dead. I mean, The Talking Dead, the show that was after The Walking Dead.
Yeah, his name sounds familiar. I don't think I know.
I wonder if they're related. They might be. They might be.
So, but you get Moses too, like being not compassionate to the slaves, but valuing life in human beings, where the Egyptians, especially Pharaoh and Ramses, like, we don't care. They're just slaves. They're just building our cities. And then he comes down and he stops them from killing who he doesn't realize in the movie is his mother from getting crushed in the stone.
That was pretty cool.
Where her little thing gets stuck just perpetually. And it's very tense.
Yeah.
And what does he say?
But she can keep backing up.
And he's like, why would you do this? And he says, blood makes poor mortar. It's like he's a good line. Another oh, okay, you're speaking to his character.
I wonder if that was written down or if Charlton came up with that.
Definitely written down.
You think so?
Oh, yeah. I think 100%. It's such a good line.
I think it would be better. I think it would be cooler if it was, he came up with that.
It would be. There's another one after that. So he basically starts defying all of Pharaoh's or what the regulations that are in place in order to let the slaves finally build this city that Ramesses has been failing to have built for years and years. Yeah. And he starts getting it done because he's just being a normal, practical person. He starts feeding the slaves. He opens up the granary.
Oh, that's right. Yep.
And they're freaking out like, this is the grain for the gods. And the other line I wrote down is he says, what the gods can digest will not sour in the belly of a slave.
Yep.
The writing in this movie.
It's so crazy.
But one thing that stood out for me that I remembered as a kid was when they're opening all the grain, and I think it's Joshua who's standing under it.
And it's just pouring on.
And I'm like, this is disgusting. Somebody's going to eat that now, this sweaty stone cutter?
Well, they're going to cook it, right?
I don't know.
They're not going to eat it right straight up like that.
Well, you can't eat. I've never eaten a head of grain, but I know that disciples do that in the New Testament, but that's fresh grain. I don't know how it works.
I guess. I don't know.
Write in, everybody. Let us know in the comments.
How long does it last? How can it last in the granaries? It doesn't spoil?
Yeah, once it's grain.
Yeah. So
listen, we shouldn't talk about things we don't know about. I have no idea. I have a whole page of quiz questions here that we may or may not get to.
Cool.
But I was explaining to my kids that this idea of the killing of the firstborn with Moses is echoed in scripture more than once. Do you know where?
The birth of Jesus.
That's right.
Yep.
That's, I think, the biggest one in the New Testament is the same thing where Herod is basically a new Pharaoh. But even later on in the movie, when we talk about the plagues, is that last final plague is sort of a callback to this thing. Yeah.
I thought that was really interesting. That's one of the things that I saw with my dad. I don't recall this in the Bible, but it's Pharaoh says, we're gonna kill the firstborn of the Hebrew slaves.
Yeah,
and Moses says, out of your mouth,
Oh yeah, that's not in the Bible.
And he gets all depressed. He's like, "Oh, why would you say that?"
Right.
Oh man, that was crazy.
What I think plays well in this movie is that for a good movie, I think those little details are well thought out.
Yeah.
And the Bible as a book, if you've never read it, is very much like that. Yeah. It's very well thought out. There are a lot of nods to previous stories. There are echoes. There's inversions of stories. It just really seeds all of that to you. So if you can capture that and put it in a film, it's like the work is done.
Yeah,
you don't have to add a whole lot. So, but that brings me to Josue. Do you know who the second constipated man in the Bible was?
No.
Oh, well, that person is Moses, who went up the mountain and took 2 tablets. Let's talk about his departure from Egypt.
He finds out that he is a Hebrew
son of a Hebrew slave.
Yeah, because Memnet tells
Nefertiti, who
immediately kills her because she's in love with Moses and wants Moses.
Moses
doesn't want that to get out because then Moses would either become a slave or get killed.
Yeah. She is so over the top and salacious and seductive.
Oh my
all
gosh.
Those scenes,
So conniving.
And then he's out in the mud pits because he decides he wants to be among his people.
Yeah.
Right. And then she calls him in. She's all teasing him and whatever. And she has him come in. He's all muddy.
Yeah.
And I remember as a kid being like, oh, who's going to wash those sheets?
Well, he finds out because he comes to Nefertiti and somebody comes in and says, Memnet, she just killed herself or she fell from the balcony.
Window, and he's like, she's walked that balcony 100 times.
Yeah, so he finds out what's going on and he goes to so how does his Egyptian mother, the one who found him, find out?
Find out that he is Hebrew?
That he's going to go look for his mom, his Hebrew mom.
Oh,
Yoshebel.
Oh, that's
Do you
a
remember
good.
that part?
I don't remember
Because she goes to the house of Yoshebel and tells them to leave.
because he asks her. He goes to his mother once he finds this out and says, "Am I whatever?" And she's like, "I don't know what you're talking about. Whatever." And then he pulls the cloth out.
Yeah, that's right.
And then he goes.
He basically finds out. He's like, "You've been lying to me."
Yeah.
And she goes there first, tries to get them to go away, and he opens the door.
And you meet Aaron for the first time, right?
Yeah. And it's a crazy type of thing, to kind of portray and think about because, he's finding out, and there's probably so many people out there that didn't grow up with their biological mother and then finding them later on and meeting them and where do I come from? What's my back? And then at the same time, still loving your adopted mother.
Yeah.
So that whole thing was really cool, because she's like, I'm your mother. I'm the one who's, you gave me all these things, but she also has given me like my heritage, who I'm from, like, my blood.
Right.
And it's like super important.
And he has that line too, where he says like, "Am I not still Moses? Don't I have the same flesh, the same, I'm the same person."
Yeah.
Which really speaks to the core of this movie. It's a lot about identity, and is somebody's life more valuable than another person's life depending on where they grew up.
Yeah, exactly.
And from the viewer's perspective, in an epic movie, you go, I want him to become Pharaoh. You want what his mother wants for him.
Yeah.
Like, I want the best for you. You are the best. You should be overseeing this whole kingdom. That should be the end of the story.
Yeah.
And that's that subversion where you go, oh, it seems disappointing. And yet then he becomes one of the most well-known people of all time.
Yeah. Yeah, because you would figure if it would have played out in the sense where his mother wanted to play out, his Egyptian mother wanted it to play out, he would have become maybe another Joseph.
Sure. Or, had monuments made of himself,
Yeah, well, probably would have treated the Hebrew slaves differently.
But I think, and then when it comes to the story of the Bible, the Old Testament and then the New Testament too, when you have like, that's okay and that seems good, but there's a story underneath that's way better.
Yeah.
That seems bad in the beginning.
Yeah.
Like he goes and so that's the thing about the character of Moses. Then he just goes and he jumps into the mud. And I don't know if he really jumped into the mud pits.
Yeah,
but
true.
he's kind of willing to give all that up to explore his identity and find out who he is. And in the course of doing that, laying everything down.
Yeah.
But then he's like forced to because he sees now in the movie, it's Joshua that's getting beaten by, I told you, the slave driver, Baca, who's with the whip and the stuff. And he's, And I was like, why do I know this man's voice? It's Vincent Price. Vincent Price, like the horror guy. Vincent Price.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
The voice at the beginning of the Thriller video.
Yeah,
that's him. He's like the only time he's ever been in a movie like this, and then he kind of went into that whole horror genre.
That's so funny.
It's I can't believe I didn't even think about it because I've seen this movie and I can hear his voice in my head.
Is he still alive? No, he's not still alive.
I highly doubt it.
Well, yeah, and it's funny because there's about Moses and finding out when he finds out he's a Hebrew. Sight and Sound Theater has done this story before, right? Mm-hmm. And in their kind of rendition or their way of telling the story, Moses grew up knowing he was a Hebrew.
Yeah.
Because his mother is his wet nurse.
Yeah, she nursed him.
So there's this thing of like, you are a Hebrew, but you're an Egyptian prince also. People
must have really known. I mean, his mom knew when she drew him out of the water, right? Like that's known anyway.
Yeah.
People are going to talk.
Exactly.
You're not going to hide this.
He looks different.
Yeah.
And so he probably grew up a bit, which also explains like his sense of like value towards people, because he's like, even though I'm separated, I'm still them and they should be treated differently, which is why he would step in to defend a slave when they're being
right. So
abused.
Then you get this story of Moses trying to do things the way that he thinks they should be done. Mm-hmm. He kills this Egyptian for beating a Hebrew slave.
Yeah.
And then the next day in the Bible, not in the movie, but it gets found out that he's trying to separate two other guys from fighting each other because he's trying to help. And they're like, who are you to be king over us? We're a different people than you. So they don't accept him. And he finds out he's a murderer. So he has to run.
Yep.
So in this story, Yul Brynner's character Ramses is like thrilled.
Yul Brynner.
Because he gets to marry now Nefertiti, who's been wanting the whole time, and the throne.
Yep, exactly.
She really gets a bad deal in this movie. I mean, she's kind of a bad character, but he's like,
before you strike me, show me the blood on your
you're skipping ahead. I want to know how many times also you're talking about how many times they say the word Moses, but his lines of like, my sweet.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes, my sweet.
But yeah, so he gets found out, murders an Egyptian.
He has to fess up to it in front of Pharaoh,
Yep.
his adopted dad, and then realize, okay,
Yeah.
you kind of position him in a place where he's sort of turned against Pharaoh, but really he hasn't. He just wants to fight for his people, and it doesn't fit. It doesn't work in their society, political system. I mean, this is so relevant, I feel like, to everybody's day to day, you know?
It's so crazy.
So he gets kind of banished from Egypt.
Yep, he gets banished, and he's given the staff by Ramses in this movie. This is pretty crazy.
It was like his prison, pole or whatever staff.
Yeah.
Did you know that Yul Brynner specifically shaved his head for this film, and that's what started his shaved head look from here on?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's cool.
This was the moment, because I feel like that's so iconic about him.
Yeah, for sure.
I liked before he left Egypt, and we'll talk about because then he goes into the desert. In Egypt, there was a lot of dramatic bell ringing. Like every time one of the Pharaoh wanted somebody, he'd like ring a bell, or Ramses, or
get my chariot,
clang, 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 and those guys just show up out of nowhere. Like, oh, they just been waiting there for somebody to.
Yep, they have.
Yeah, that was really good. So he ends up going out into the wilderness to I don't know, find God. He doesn't even go for that. He's just running for his life.
Yeah, they give him 1 day's ration of water and bread. 1 day. There's that one Egyptian who is like the general or something like that, who's like the trying to be the voice of reason here, of like, you can't just send him out there with with a 1 day's worth of rations. He's going to die.
Right.
Or, hey, maybe we shouldn't follow the Hebrews because there's fire from heaven and the water's been split.
He's the voice of the viewer.
We're not going to defeat these people. What are you doing? Come on. And then the fire goes away, and he's like, "Okay, go after them. This is a job for a butcher, not a pharaoh." And they're all like, "You jerk."
Yeah.
Fine.
It's crappy that's your
that
job.
line though.
It was really.
This is a job, not a job for a pharaoh, but a butcher.
But that line, that scene is so dramatic too, right before he leaves, where Pharaoh's like, "Let the name of Moses be stricken from every obelisk and whatever."
Yeah, everything.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, I think they have to put that in there because you don't find Moses written anywhere in Egypt for real. So.
It's both that, and it adds quite a bit of drama.
Yeah.
So he leaves. Now, in the story of the Bible, Moses is 40 when he leaves Egypt, and 80 when he gets to the burning bush.
That's great.
In this movie, we're skipping.
It's
the time is sort of implied. I mean, he has a kid eventually. Yeah. He gets stuck out in the wilderness, and he finds Jethro's family.
Yeah.
Sheik of Midian.
Yeah. I like how they put there, that Jethro is descendant of Ishmael.
Yeah.
And all that, which is really cool.
Again, and we have that a whole page here of little nods to characters that got mentioned, and that's one of them. Like Ishmael gets mentioned, Hagar gets mentioned. Ephraim, the tribe of Ephraim gets mentioned. The movie is so good at just throwing those names out there.
It really is.
Okay, a little trivia for everybody watching. I think also you already know the answer. How did Moses first encounter God in the wilderness? Was it A, through a whisper, B, in a dream, C, a burning bush, or D, a heavenly voicemail?
Oh, man.
Come on.
A burning bush,
you could call
tree,
it heavenly voicemail,
shrub.
So you kind of to fast forward.
It is heavenly voicemail.
He ends up, he marries one of Jethro's daughters. That whole thing was a little bit funny, where they're all like dancing and he has to choose a wife. He's basically adopting a different lifestyle. You get that story.
What does he say that line? He's like, where would you go? This and this and that. What Jethro was telling him, he goes, "I will abide in this land."
Yeah.
For a while.
What does he say? Yeah. I was more focused on the pita bread they were eating. Like, I'm hungry. Like, what is he dipping it in? I don't know, but it looked
really good. Yeah. I mean, it was probably like, what? Oil and...
harissa?
Maybe.
Do you know who plays in the movie, they pronounce her name Sephora, his eventual wife? Mm-hmm. Yeah, do you recognize the character?
I mean...
I don't know if you would, but her name is Yvonne DiCarlo.
Yeah.
But she is best known as later on playing Lily Munster in The Munsters.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's funny. She was in Tales from the Crypt. That's
Was
funny.
she?
Yeah. So yeah, so he's there in Midian now. He's chosen Sephora, not the younger daughters. And I was telling, when we were watching this with my dad, one of the things that in this case, most of the time these guys, when they had like choosing wives,
Yeah,
you would always choose like the youngest daughter
sure.
because of fertility and whatever. And most of the time you're older, which is normal back in the day. It's kind of weird, oh, she's 17, I'm 80 or 40, whatever.
Yeah.
But it was a big deal that he chose the oldest daughter, not the youngest.
Yeah.
And I don't know what that says about Moses or whatever, but the way they depicted it in that time period, it was out of the norm. So he was always kind of out of the norm.
And sort of honorable, right?
Yeah.
Like he's not picking for himself. It's not a selfish thing that he's doing.
Yeah. I think he's also picking because of what I would imagine be maturity, wisdom, whatever.
And contrasted with Nefertiti, right? Who even in their relationship, she was way into him in a very superficial, selfish, kind of evil sort of way, where he was more pure-hearted. And so then you get him and it's like, oh, they're a better couple. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Then it gets weird once he sees the bush.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah.
Wait, before we get there though, there's
Joshua finds them.
That's right. There's this line though where he's in there with the Midianites, right?
Mm-hmm.
All the heads of whatever, and the girls. He has to pick which one, and they're all getting ready because I hope he picks me.
Yeah.
And he says to the musician, Kohath, which is another biblical name, not the same guy, a musician, strike your bow. But I didn't know what he said. For my whole life, I've seen this movie 100 times, and in my head it was strike your bow. I don't know what he said. And I was like, guys, I was trying to explain to my family that I rewound it. And it's like, yeah, it does. I don't know what he said, but it's on the subtitles.
Oh, that's so funny.
Strike your bow. I'd give my eyes if I had your choice.
Yeah.
Oh
my gosh. Creepy,
old other guy. He married the youngest daughter. Ew. So Moses is finding out about their God in the wilderness. He's raised as an Egyptian, but there's this fiery mountain that just lives in the background like Mount Doom.
Yeah, that's where God abides. When it shakes, so we know God's there. Whoa.
That whole bit was kind of fun, and it puts some images in your head, but they, again, take some liberties. But he's out there shepherding his sheep, drinking milk.
Goat's milk, probably. Yeah. Well, the other thing too is in the movie, he's out there with his wife and Joshua, because Joshua finds him because he flees from Egypt.
Yeah.
And they see the burning bush. They all three of them see a burning bush, like something burning in the distance.
He sees it first, right? Moses does?
He does, yeah.
Like, what?
And in the Bible, it's like he followed a lamb or a sheep that kind of went astray.
Did it say? I don't think it says that.
It does it?
I think it just says he comes across a burning bush. Yeah, it's not.
Because in every for some reason, every Bible story, every kid's story,
the
even
Prince
the
of Egypt, yeah, he's following a lamb or something.
Yeah, he's like stumbles across it, and by himself. But in this one, he sees it from I don't know, maybe 3 miles.
Yeah. Now, at this point, like you said, in the movie, we're after the intermission. Yeah. We read this, my family, after watching the movie, because my kids had questions. And I'm like, oh, we should just read it.
Yeah.
And so we read, and we stopped at the burning bush. You know what chapter in Exodus the burning bush is?
4?
3.
Oh, gosh.
This all that we just talked about is the first 2 chapters of Exodus, which you can read in, a clip. It's very
crazy.
short.
Yeah.
So they're adding a lot of, there's a lot of details like why he found the bush. We don't know. In the movie, he sees it from 3 miles down the mountain. And like you said, it's in a cave. And somehow he's just like, there's a bush. And one of my kids is like, how did he see that? How far is he climbing? And you get the Sound of Music montage. He's off into the Alps.
Yeah. Me and my dad both said the same thing. We're like, wait,
in
what?
the daytime.
In the daytime.
I don't know.
With the rest of the mountain on fire.
He was hallucinating.
That's
he was
hilarious.
just too much, only drinking goat milk, not enough water. So, and then the voice of the bush and suspiciously sounds like Charlton Heston.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's his voice.
It's his voice. It calls his name in King James English.
I am that I am.
This is good though. I feel like this is kind of the climax of Moses and his character arc.
Yeah.
in the story. Now, here's my maybe one qualm with this, but it sort of works. It's fine. It's just an interpretation.
Yeah.
He comes down that mountain and he talks completely different for the rest of the movie.
Oh, he really does.
He
Yeah,
is
you're right.
always in a daze. I have seen the Lord, you know? And I'm like, oh, I liked you better when you were a normal person.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, it would kind of change you though.
Oh, totally. I'm like, yeah,
but
you,
not that dramatically though.
you saw God. And she's like, Moses, what's your hair? Where are your sandals? He went the whole way back down the mountain. He left his sandals there because God told him to take them off.
Yeah. He's just like, I'm not picking these back up. These bad boys have been, my feet have been on holy ground. I'm not putting anything back on them.
It says a lot to his character, but it struck me as kind of funny. But it is kind of
And the burning bush is the first time we see any animation
in the movie.
Like
I don't know. None of the sea stuff in the the background. I guess you're right.
I mean, like the cartoon animation
Yeah.
stuff, like superimposed on top of live
but
action.
Moses, when he sees the bush, when I saw it on this watch, is definitely not looking at the bush.
Oh yeah,
He's looking like this way, and the bush is over here. And I'm like, okay,
he doesn't know where. Yeah,
I didn't want to ruin the moment in the room, so I didn't mention it because I'm like, oh, this is the music is stirring. The moment it works.
Yeah.
But I'm like, he's not looking at the bush at all.
and they also skipped where God is like tells him to stick his hand inside his robe,
And it comes out with leprosy.
Yeah, and
Or the snake.
my dad was like, "How are they supposed to do that?" I'm like, "Yeah, you got a good point."
You mean how would they like accomplish it with visual effects?
Yeah.
Oh, they could have
It probably would have been good. I don't
camera
know.
cut.
They already did. They were like, we can't afford to do the snake thing twice.
Yeah. It's just the same exact over and over again. Yeah.
Pretty interesting. And I know we'll eventually watch this, but the Prince of Egypt, that scene in the Prince of Egypt's always been my favorite.
It's really good.
And
who made man's mouth?
yeah, that kind of thing, because he does say, I can't. Why am I going to do this? I'm not good at whatever.
Here's the problem.
I'm going to use Aaron.
With amazing Charlton Heston is he's great at speaking.
I know you can't put that in there. You can't put that. I can't speak. I'm not
He's the
eloquent,
most
man.
charismatic. I could listen to him talk all day. Where in the Bible, he's like, I don't know if he has a stutter or what, but he's like, I can't do this. Let Aaron do it.
Yeah.
Which reminds me, do you know who the third constipated man in the Bible is?
Gosh, man.
I'm just going to tell you.
Go for
it. King David, who sat on the throne for 40 years.
Oh, I've heard this one before.
All right, so after the intermission, Moses decides to return to Egypt.
Yep.
He is a new man, and they recognize him almost immediately. You're right, Pharaoh and Nefertiti are like, what's going on here? This guy we sent off to die. And they ask, what kingdom has sent you? And he says, the kingdom of the Most High. I just like that.
Well, we skipped over the fact that Ramses is now the Pharaoh.
Yeah, Seti has died.
And his last words were Moses.
Yes. What does he say?
With my last breath, I want to say the name. I'm going to break my own rule and say the name Moses.
And he only says it once.
Once.
Right? Every other time it's twice. Or however often, I don't know. Yeah, that was good. And when Moses in the Bible comes back, he is 80.
Wow.
So in this one, I mean, he has his one kid
35.
that they show, Gershom, but
He's 35.
He's had a kid. Some time has passed.
Yeah.
Pharaoh and Nefertiti have their own son, who's a real jerk.
And they look. He kicks his staff.
He's just a little Ramses.
Just you wait, kid. You're gonna die.
Oh, I kind of feel bad for him a little bit. And then Moses so he confronts Pharaoh, tells him to let his people go, which of course he won't. And Moses goes to his people, the Hebrew people, right? And they're all kind of and Lucy, she's like, where'd they all get these hats? Because up until then, we've only seen the Hebrews in loincloths in the mud and stuff.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, they've got full outfits, They're casual clothes when they're not working.
The second part of the movie, 80 years have passed or whatever. Yeah, let's do it.
I guess.
Fashion changes.
And Nefertiti comes to Moses, and at this point, his wife, she sent her back, right?
I don't know where she is.
Okay, so first, she's like,
She's probably living in one of the huts with his family, like his.
Well, eventually Nefertiti sends her back to Moab or whatever.
Oh, that's right. She gives him. She gives her something, right?
I don't know. when it's going
Give
down.
her a cloth or something
In
like
the
that.
Bible,
whatever.
she kind of disappears in this moment too.
Yeah.
But she's having that interchange with her, and she's like talking about Moses' new wife, and she's like, are her lips chafed by the desert sand,
Oh, that's right.
or are they moist
Oh,
like a pomegranate?
oh my God. Red like a pomegranate. Oh, no. Yeah, she was definitely something else, that Nefertiti.
She was something else at Nefertiti. Yeah, and yeah, her true colors start to show more and more as the movie sort of progresses. Do you know, according to the Bible, what happened to Moses' wife and kids while he was back in Egypt?
They prospered, right? Yeah.
No, I don't know. According to Exodus 18, Zipporah and her sons returned to Midian and later rejoined him, which is kind of happens like that way in the movie.
Yeah.
But did you know, according to the Bible, some scholars believe Moses may have had 2 different wives?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Why?
Well, because later on, Miriam gets really upset at Moses because of his Cushite wife. And up until then, Zipporah is not mentioned as Cushite. And so there are a couple different interpretations. You can either assume that it's the same person or that there's a different wife involved down the road.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is it Miriam who questions Moses in the wilderness and then gets leprosy?
Yeah.
And then wasn't his wife there? Don't they mention Sephora in any of that?
No. Numbers 12:1, if you want to look it up, mentions Moses' Cushite wife.
Huh. Okay.
I would like to ask you one other question. After your incredible impression last week, did Moses actually say the words, "Let my people go"?
He does.
Exodus 5:1. Thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, let my people go, that they may hold a feast to me in the wilderness. I'd say that's a yes. So in order to let the people go, you get this contention. We're going to skip forward. Pharaoh makes them make bricks without straw. It's just
that
getting
was
harder
crazy.
for the people of Israel.
How are we supposed to make bricks without straw? I don't know why I said it in a Mickey Mouse voice.
I'm picturing Mickey Mouse in a loincloth with, just scars on his back.
I don't know where that came from.
There's a lot of real devastating slavery scenes in this,
Bricks
by the way.
without straw?
I was going to, if I could do a Donald Duck impression, I would have come in there real hot with a,
You can do a goofy one.
yuck.
Bricks without straw?
What are you talking about? Moses.
Oh, Moses.
Okay. So eventually now, in order to let the people go, Pharaoh doesn't listen. He hardens his heart. God hardens his heart after. 10 plagues.
10
right?
plagues. Yeah, they don't show them all, do they?
No, they fast forward. But I want to
They
ask.
showed the hail with the fire. That was pretty cool.
So tell me, best to your recollection,
The water. Yeah.
what are the
snake.
10 plagues in order? Can you name them?
In order?
Yeah.
He turns the Nile River into blood. The frogs.
Good. Do you want me to tell you immediately if you're wrong or just go with it? 'Cause you're good so far.
Tell me if I'm wrong. Pestilence, or no, famine. No. Is it the boils? Oh no, it's the hail.
Nope.
Oh,
These are all plagues that you are mentioning here, which are terrible.
Okay, so water, blood. What was the second one I said?
Frogs.
The frogs.
Gross.
Oh, darkness in the land of Egypt.
Nope.
No. What was the third?
Gnats.
Gnats. Oh, that's okay. Gnats. Yeah, and then locusts.
Nope. You've named all the other plagues.
Gnats, and then
You're going to be really irritated when I tell you what it is.
what? Okay, the fourth one is
Flies.
Flies. The fifth one is
I have a handy chart. Okay. You want to keep trying or I'll try? Because I think I got it.
okay. Go for it.
Okay, ready? I don't know if that's right side up. You'll appreciate the illustrations on that. Okay. River into blood. Gnats. Or no, frogs, excuse me. Gnats, flies, pestilence. The animals die.
Livestock.
Yeah. Then, wait for it. Animals die and then boils
Yep.
and then hail
And then hail. Yep.
and then locusts.
Yep.
And then darkness.
Yes.
And then the firstborn die.
Yep.
I'm going to have to share this little,
So-
the little illustrations are so funny. I found it. I just
So
found it.
the
on
ones that
internet.
they skip in the movie is the livestock, the boils, the flies, the gnats,
The frogs.
The
We don't
frogs.
see the frogs. It just goes right from the,
locust. It goes-
blood to the hail. doesn't it?
blood to hail, no darkness, and then firstborn.
And obviously, in the Bible, this is where the phrase originates. What the hell?
Yeah. Well, did you know too that each one of these plagues corresponds to a god of Egypt?
I've heard that, and I completely forgot.
Like
I don't know what they are.
It's like a, what is it? It's a kind of like a backhanded insult to each of their gods.
Not
Wow, it's crazy.
Not Lord of the Dead. That was the last guy. What's his name?
I'm not sure about the firstborn though.
Well, and that's kind of a callback to earlier too.
Yeah.
The fiery hail though wasn't. It was just hail.
Or unless they have a rain god, and it was just like, your god can't rain fire from heaven. Ooh.
Ooh. Well, yeah.
Their god is too powerful, Ramses.
So Nefertiti goes to Goshen.
Yeah.
At the end. And when it's dark and she goes and she meets Moses there and he comes and's like, where's my family? And he sees her little thing and she's just like, like laid up against the wall, like, you still love me, you dirty animal. And he's like, get out of here, where's my wife?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Jeez.
And she kind of comes to him one last time and says, Pharaoh's going to kill the firstborn. And that's when, so in the movie, he puts it in Pharaoh's mouth to say the last plague.
Yeah.
And Pharaoh says, I'm going to kill all the firstborn. And then
of Egypt, yeah.
Then the angel of death
Peter.
comes.
Yeah.
How did you like how that was displayed in the movie?
The angel of death?
Yeah. Will it pass, Moses? Will it pass?
I think, what other way, can you depict it? It just, the Bible says the angel of death. Geez.
I thought it was pretty good. That creepy mist.
Yeah.
Like, I thought it was done really well. And then when Joshua, because he's out painting blood on people's doors, and then he comes in and he's like, so look.
Look upon death.
Yeah.
And he's like, close the door.
Close the door, Joshua. And then,
so I thought it was, it's funny, not funny, but it was really cool to see Pharaoh talking to his soldiers and other people and going, go out, we're going to go ahead and move this thing and kill the firstborn.
Mm-hmm.
And the mist hits the soldier, and
Yeah.
all those people, and and he falls over and dies.
Yeah.
It's like, dang, like that was. I don't think they needed to put that in there, but
But then your favorite guy was like, he was my firstborn.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the other thing too, is that guy keeps getting the message, and he looks at Pharaoh like, why aren't you getting this message?
Yeah, exactly.
Which is why I think the Bible says that God hardens his heart.
Yeah, later,
Pharaoh,
about like halfway through.
And I think it's symbolic to the fact that God had a whole narrative that he wanted to go through before.
Well, like you said,
people.
whether it's combating with the gods of Egypt or whatever, it's kind of showing himself to be who he is.
Yeah, he was like, I'm gonna show you my fullness, and I'm not gonna, to the detriment of even the people who might have been like, hey, let's stop this, let's let him go before this gets even worse. And Pharaoh was like, no.
It's debatable territory, but I feel like the character of Pharaoh is already well established by then, where he's like made a definite choice.
Yeah.
But it is pretty devastating when you get his son dying. Because I'm not even invested in. You don't like this guy. You don't like his wife really. And Moses is like, when he sends him out, go. And he's like, we will go with our flocks and our horses, with our young and our old. And he's making his speech, and Nefertiti's coming down the stairs with her dead son, that he like lays on the idol. Very dramatic and very well done. And then you get this shift where the people are all leaving impromptu, and this is like the most name drops.
Oh yeah.
Eleazar, or like, Caleb is there. One of the guys actually on that list that you have is like one of the leaders of the tribe of Judah, the really old guy that she wants to give him her seat on the cart.
It's not Bit-to-High, is it? Pharaoh's daughter adopts Moses. No, that's not it. Elderly man leaving Egypt gives Bit-to-High a fig tree sapling.
Yeah, Bithia. Bithia is his Egyptian mom. Remember her?
Yeah.
Okay, so she wants to give that really old man a seat on her cart.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what's his name in that list? Aminadab?
Yep.
I'm going to look it up here. I might as well pull out this giant list for one thing. he's basically one of King David's ancestors, and he's passing on this little fig tree, and
That's cool.
Then he dies.
It's cool. I put that little thing in there.
That's what this whole movie is filled with little nods like that they didn't have to do at all.
Yeah.
But I feel like adds a lot. So, and then you get them all kind of walking out of Egypt, and there's a lot of them, and you get the city.
What am I to do with the multitude, Lord? this multitude.
Da, 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 da. Yep. And then pretty much right to the Red Sea. Pharaoh lets them go. They're trapped there. There's a lot of contention, right? And this whole time you have this Dathan character who we didn't really talk about, but he's in the Bible.
Did you lead us out here to die, Moses? Huh? See here?
It's funny you say that because he actually is known for playing gangsters in other films.
He looks like a gangster.
That actor, yeah.
Slimy dude.
Yeah, his name is Edward G. Robinson.
Better to be a slave in Egypt than to die in the wilderness.
I just think, here's the crazy thing. It works so much for a dramatic movie.
Yeah.
But it's in the Bible.
Yeah.
Like these people were constantly like, he just like rescues them all from slavery. And they're like, let's go back to Egypt. And God's feeding them out of the sky. And they're like, I'm tired of this manna. You know?
It's weird,
Let's
man.
stone him.
Dude. And then, the narrator says they wandered for 40 years and what? Is it just, 40 years in the wilderness.
Yeah. Later on.
So that they, the generation that, rebelled?
Died
out.
off in the, But, so before that, Red Sea, what's your take? How do you feel like the Red Sea holds up in 2025?
Oh, I think they did a great job with what they had technology-wise. There is a moment where I think they could have been a little smoother. I think the guys editing it probably would have been like, "Oh, I could have done that a little bit better if I had more time," because the water starts to part, and you can kind of tell that the strategy was, okay, we're gonna film water collapsing in, and then play it backwards. You could tell it's just played backwards, right? But there's a moment where it cuts from the water just being kind of like stirred up at the beginning, and then you can kind of see it was kind of an abrupt cut to where they showed the different portion of the water now starting to separate. That transition between those two could have been a little bit better. And then I believe that they just played it back
the other way,
in the other way forward, the regular to show when the water comes back down onto the Pharaoh's chariots.
Yeah, and because the horses and chariots are just sort of in there, they're not even moving any particular direction.
Yeah, I
they're
thought that was a little bit weird too, because they were actively like going down and pursuing and going pretty fast. But once the water starts to fall, they're all just scattered and kind of like just standing there,
all over
wandering,
the place,
like it's just meandering. I think that could have been done a little bit better also.
Yeah.
But given just the time period and what they had for technology, I think it holds up still, And I think if you watched it on like a tube TV, even better.
yeah. Especially that animated flame that separates them from the Egyptians.
Again with the Disney type of animation, it made me feel a lot like is it Cinderella when the witch becomes a dragon?
Sleeping Beauty.
Is it Sleeping Beauty? Yeah,
Maleficent?
Yeah, I think it is Sleeping Beauty. That whole scene with the green fire swirly. Yeah. It looked very much like that.
Yeah, it was good, but it was that it plays out very funny in the same way that I feel like it does when I read the Bible, and maybe I'm a little influenced by this, where it's so dramatic when they're pushed up against the Red Sea, and immediately the people are all like, "See, he brought us here to kill us. Let's kill him. Let's all stone him." And he's like, "Look, see the hand of God." Moses is real confident in this moment. In the movie, where I feel like in the Bible, maybe a little bit less so, but he does it.
Yeah.
And then they cross, and it takes them all night, right? It's nighttime. They're crossing the Red Sea, and then the fire lifts before they're all completely out.
Yeah.
And so Pharaoh sends his chariots and his men into the water.
Yeah.
And I was telling you earlier, one of my favorite moments is the little kid at the end of the line who, their parent was like giving them snacks the whole way and trying to get them to come. And they're like, "Stop talking. Come on." They're now at the back of the line.
Yep.
And the kid's like, "Mom, look, horses." And she's like, "Ah!" They all start freaking out. So they all kind of run out, and then, the water comes back down.
I thought that was really cool because that was really... I don't know what they did to kind of combine the pre-recorded water fall, coming back together, and the water that got splashed on the people on the rock.
Yeah.
They did a really good job with that.
It was good.
Because they all got wet. You could see Moses, like, Charlton Heston, like, going like, I'm wet now. Like,
yeah. Okay. And then the very last scene of this movie, essentially, like the last big dramatic scene is when they go to Mount Sinai to receive, he goes to receive the 10 Commandments.
He's been up there for 40 days and 40 nights.
40 days and 40 nights. And so they build an idol.
Yeah, dude.
Which happens in the Bible.
Yeah.
But crazy, first of all, that they have all this stuff. I was explaining to my kids that in the Bible, it literally says that they essentially, God told them and Moses to ask the Egyptians for belongings, riches, what they just, it says in the Bible, plundered the Egyptians. So they're going out with all this stuff. And of course, they have all this gold and valuables and stuff.
Rip off your jewelry. Rip off. Jeez.
Yeah, he's pulling earrings off of women's ears.
Are they just clip-ons?
They're crazy. So this turns into the probably the wildest youth group party you've ever seen. It's like Moses is up there, right, in his weird trance, and Joshua's a little bit behind him. And then these people he's been gone. Let's make an idol.
And for some reason, all of these Egyptian slaves are in like the best health of their lives because no one is out of shape.
Oh, I know, because they left and
they're
you
all
could
strong.
see their ribs, and they've been wandering the desert, and now they're all just like
all their women are like these fit, attractive, like really healthy, like
shine in the calf with her hair.
20-something-year-olds.
Did you
everywhere.
see the woman
What?
that was eating grapes while treading them?
Oh yeah,
she's like stomping on grapes and eating. It's just like opulence and like
let's
idolatry.
just show yeah, exactly. Let's just show the most like, yeah. Oh my gosh.
It really got crazy. Yeah, I was wondering, like, who are all these cast members and what happened to the children?
Yeah. The mothers are all like,
go to bed,
don't
kid.
look, go to sleep. Me and your dad are going to have some fun tonight.
Oh, Lord. And poor Lilia goes from like, loving Joshua to being a slave in Dathan's house to now being chained to the idol. They're like, we need a sacrifice.
Oh my gosh.
Chain her up to this giant calf.
And he said, God, here are my commandments.
Yeah, which is another epic scene, right? The cartoon finger of God is just like carving, thou shalt not kill.
And then it goes right into the camera.
Yeah, that's right.
And he's like, take these to thy people, for they have, what does he say? Fallen into depravity or something like that.
Yeah. Moses is like, what?
What are you talking about?
And again, I don't know whether to to point out how crazy it is in the movie or the Bible, because it's the same. Although this gets a little crazier in the movie.
It does.
They combine a couple Bible stories. In the Bible, Moses sees what's going on and he breaks the tablets. And then he crushes up the idol and puts it in their water. Right? Yeah. In the movie, you were saying you remember this as a kid.
Yeah.
He's like, what does he say? Oh man, I don't remember the line.
These are the commandments that the Lord hath written for you, and they will be your, not your doom, or your judgment or whatever.
Something. That's very dramatic. I should have written it down. And he throws them at the calf.
At the calf, and it breaks and explodes. And the earth friggin' parts open and swallows people up, and
Dathan.
the calf.
Yeah, the calf is just like and all those people. Yeah, a little nod though. That's based on a biblical moment where the earth opens up and swallows up Dathan and Abiram and stuff.
Wow,
but not quite like this.
So crazy.
Yeah, and then it just fast forwards. So in the Bible, Moses has to carve out some new tablets so God can rewrite the commandments on them.
He says something about like which God hath given to us again, or redid or whatever.
Yeah, at the end of the movie. It's sort of, so again,
put it in the tabernacle, or in the
Ark of the Covenant.
Put it in the ark along with the commandments that the Lord hath given.
Yeah, I don't know. You get to the end of the movie and Moses has the biggest, longest, whitest beard and hair you have ever seen.
Yeah.
And the talk about Prince of Thieves, his clothes were white. Moses' hair for being in the desert was just
Prince of
Pantene
Thieves,
Pro V.
Prince of Egypt.
No. Last week we were talking about Robin Hood's shirt.
Oh, that's right. Prince of Thieves. You're right. Yeah, that's right.
And now Moses' beard. Yeah, I can't believe it. And his wife has aged finally. Everybody else finally aged.
Yeah.
They all stayed the
Except for
same age
Joshua.
through the whole movie. No, he's got a little gray in his beard. He's got to take the whole land now, so he's got to stick in there.
So funny.
Aaron's other two sons who didn't get killed because his first two die in the Bible.
He's like, I can't go in because the Lord was angry with me for smiting the rock of water, or the water of rock. Or
Does he mention the rock?
Yeah. He
does,
yeah.
I didn't remember that at the end. Speaking of Israelites wandering, do you know who the fourth constipated man in the Bible was?
I don't know.
It was a man named Balaam who, you might have to put your finger on that button, always had trouble with his.
That was perfect.
Okay. And then, yeah, like you said, he kind of wanders off the side of the mountain and just stands there. He's like, sorry, guys, I got to go. You got to go in without me, but I'm going to go here and take in the view.
Yeah. And he just stands there.
Okay.
He does that a lot.
He does do that a lot.
Raises his hands a lot.
In his spooky voice. I mean, his wife at some point in the movie when he first sees God and you said, she's like, he has seen God, you know? And you get the tension in their relationship because it changes at that point. And could you imagine living with that guy for the rest of your life?
Maybe that's why he had a good.
I know, that's what I was going to say. It didn't make it. It's like, listen, you're a different person. This wasn't in our vows.
You've changed too much. I can't even look at you, Moses. Well, it's because I've seen God too many times. Well, isn't it in the Bible that, when he does come down from the mountain, they can't look on him because he's so bright?
Yeah.
So, yeah, she couldn't be around him.
No, I
Give
can't.
me sunburn.
I can't imagine. I wonder what their relationship really was like. I don't know.
But the Bible says he didn't actually see God. Well, he does see God, but he only sees like the back of his shoulder is what he shows him or something like that. That's it.
Well, when God kind of passes by, you talking about?
Yeah. When he's like, I want to see you. And he goes, any man who sees me shall surely die.
And he puts him in the cleft of the rock.
Yep.
This is not Elijah, right? I'm mixing the two stories up in my head because Elijah sees God on the same mountain.
Yep.
In a cave, and God passes by. But yeah, you're right. He's like, you can only see my back.
Yeah.
And he covers a rock. Okay.
That's so crazy.
But also in the Bible, and this is not in the movie, if you want an interesting trivia fact, not only does Moses see God, but 70 of the elders of Israel, they go up the mountain with him before he gets the commandments, and obviously Joshua, and they just all see God.
That's wild. Yeah.
There's too much Bible trivia to get into, so I'm not going to get into it because it's really cool, but we don't have the time to talk about it. But okay, when we come to what do we think of this? If you can't already tell, I want to tell you what my kids think of this.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Because like I said, we watched this in one night. We started and the first comment was, how long is this? And we didn't watch this in one night because it was a school night.
Oh, okay.
And we got to about 50 minutes left and everybody started fading, right?
Oh, yeah.
I was like, okay, guys, you need to go to bed. And I was asked by more than one child, pause it, don't watch the rest without me.
That's cool.
Every time we put this movie on, it just like grabs everybody.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's the combination of our background or the quality of the movie,
the content
that it's just like, what is it about this movie that I feel like it stands up?
You know what I think it is? It's that thing of it makes you want to like, was that in the Bible?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, was it like that? Oh yeah, it might have been that way. Or no, it just spurs this like, oh man, this intrigue into the story.
Yeah.
Because that's the same way with watching it at home with my dad, or even with Elizabeth is just like, man, I wonder what it really was like for that kind of portion of the story,
Yeah.
And if you have to stop, it's not like your attention or the intrigue doesn't go away until you've finished it.
Yeah.
And then even then, like we're doing now, still talking about it.
Yep. And there was more than once. There were so many times where somebody would ask a question. I'm like, oh, we're kind of missing something. So I would have to pause it.
Let's get the Bible.
Or just tell them, talk about it. Or like a quote would come up. This happened a few times too, where I'm like, oh, that's literally directly from the Bible. Like what they're saying, it sounds like a dramatic line straight out of the Bible.
Yeah.
And then something else came up after that was like a ridiculous line. And somebody asked like, oh, is that out of the Bible? I'm like, yes, it is.
Yep.
That is directly from the Bible.
It's crazy. Yeah.
It really does. It made us want to go back and read the book.
It's really interesting. I think people that watch, it's the same feeling you get when you're watching like The Chosen, where you want to like reference what the Bible says and like, that's right.
How real is this?
Exactly.
Yeah. And they put some, Vincent Price is in this movie, Yul Brynner, like they did a good job of like a cast of characters and making it a movie. But like you said, it just feels very faithful in a unique way.
Yeah.
It was really fun to watch.
Crazy. So for me, it is one of those nostalgia movies that definitely holds up. And probably because of our background, like you said, like growing up, hearing this story and reading this story your entire life. It's one of the things that doesn't ever get old, you know?
Moses got old, but his story remains. I don't know, it's really good.
And there's so much stuff that you can glean out of it. Like you were saying, like they really leaned into like the political question of the people, does man belong to God or the state? You know, that kind of thing.
Very explicitly, but yeah. So it gives you a lot to talk about.
You can take different portions of it out. I mean, even just from the 10 plagues of Egypt and what those meant, you know, that kind of thing. And
Yeah, so I think, we'll probably watch it again, which is why this is one I actually own, because we watched it at some point and then wanted to watch it again. I'm like, I should just buy this because
for sure
we're going to watch it again.
Yeah, this is definitely one of those where, you've never seen the 10 Commandments? You've got to watch it.
You should watch it. I don't even think, even if you're not into, like, I haven't seen Ben-Hur or The Robe or whatever, all these, a lot of movies that are kind of similar, but if you're going to watch one, you should watch this one.
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of these actors were probably really used to playing, acting on stage, and I think that's one of those things where I think it's kind of lost today. You're acting to the camera, not to an audience, where you can get away with certain things because the camera doesn't capture it. But in this one, that's why I think that overacting thing was probably really, they didn't really care about it too much because they had to use their whole body to act. So, you get...
So let it be written. So let it be done.
Yeah.
Cape flip.
Exactly. Or, the 10 Commandments are being written by God's finger. I have to hug this wall. Like...
That music, though.
And they have to do that because with a camera shot, whatever, you can just be like... And it's just this reaction. Your body's not being captured or you're just seeing the thing. They were using their whole body.
Yeah, they were in that idol party.
So it's a very different type of acting than you see today, and I appreciate it. I'm cool with it. I'm down with it.
We had a good time.
Yeah.
Well, everybody, you can let us know what you think right now. If you are on Spotify, you can scroll to the poll. It is below, and you can let us know, hey, I think this movie holds up, or actually, you guys are crazy. But I don't think there's going to be that. But I thought that about other things too. So let us know your actual opinion. And if you have ideas of what other things we should be watching in the epic spring of 2025, you can send those to us.
Where?
At plagues at wdyt.show. Or just pick a plague.
Pick a plague.
Locusts at wdyt.show. Wherever you send it at what do you think? wdyt.
Pestilence.
It'll get to us and we would love to hear your ideas.
Yeah. Share, rate it.
We don't have time today to close the loop, Josue. This has been a long conversation about the movie. So I'm going to save these for next time.
Okay.
I feel like we at least need to touch on this Spanish song.
Okay.
But before we do you know the fifth constipated man in the Bible?
No, I don't.
It's a man called Titus. Are you familiar with Titus?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know why?
Because his bowels were too tight?
No, just say his name.
Titus? Wait, what? His name?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, his last name?
No, his name. You said it.
Titus. Oh, gosh. Titus.
I love it.
I get it. You guys get it? It's funny.
Okay, so we sang a song last week.
It's like a snake eating its own tail.
I'm ashamed of my Spanish. It was really bad. So, but you got the song. I found a YouTube video of that.
I didn't catch it at
song.
the time, but I could understand most of it.
Okay. So the lyrics that I have, you should just read them.
The lyrics that you...
Yeah, I pasted the lyrics from the video that I found, I will paste below. So if you want to click the link, you can watch it. But this is not the melody that I know.
Al son del cocodrilo.
What does that mean?
Al son, I don't know what al son means.
Uh-huh.
But something of the crocodile.
Okay.
So I don't know if it's like the...
Maybe it's an error. I just pulled these lyrics.
It might be an error, or it might be like a saying, and a Mexican saying or a Spanish saying that I don't know. I'm not familiar with.
Okay, so something about the crocodile.
Y el orangutan, and the orangutan.
Okay. all the animals that we're all familiar with.
La picará serpiente, the serpent would sting you. Y el águila real, and the real
Alligator?
no, and the real eagle.
Oh, we're back to the eagles.
El topo.
What does that mean? This is where I messed it up last week.
El topo, I have no idea what that is.
This is what I remember.
Some type of animal.
El topo, el gato,
El gato.
el elefante loco.
And then
That last line is just a sentence.
it's just prom pan son de la creación. It's just like boom, bam, beam. They are of the creation. So that's not really like words with meaning, but todos los hizo Dios. God made them all.
Yeah. And I know it.
So
El Señor or something instead of Dios.
So all, from the crocodile to the American eagle to the sting,
the American eagle,
the American bald eagle, to the eagle, and even to the sting of the serpent, God made them all.
It's good. It's a good message, and I will still butcher it because between these lyrics and the ones that I know, I don't know. But I'm not going to try again for a while. Well, listen, Epic Spring of 2025 continues.
Yeah.
We have some epic fun coming next week. I know what we're teasing already, but I'm not going to tease it yet because we're going to tease it in next week's mini-sode.
Yes, we are.
I've said the word tease
stay
too
tuned.
many times.
Yeah, just like this movie says Moses too many times.
Yeah, a lot.
Moses.
And let us know if you're liking this mini-sode format. I'm having fun with it.
Yeah.
And it has given me room to make some ridiculous reels. So if you're not already following us on Instagram or anywhere else, all those links can be found at wdyt.show. We're having a good time.
We are. And I hope you guys are too.
Yeah.
We're having a blast here in this rainy springtime right now.
Whatever it is where you are, if you're in the
That's
desert
true.
or you're in the rain or you're in the middle of the Red Sea, I hope you're
It's
watching
appropriate.
this
All
movie.
the April showers we're getting right now.
Yeah.
I love it.
I love it. All right. We'll see you next time, guys. Have a good, I was going to say spring. We'll see you next time, guys, on What Do You Think of This?
Peace out, everybody.
Bye.